The storm had rolled in faster than expected, devouring the afternoon sun beneath a ceiling of bruised clouds. Trees bowed under the weight of the wind, and the smell of rain clung to the air like something primal, something old. Clara gripped the wheel of her rusting pickup tighter, squinting through the smudged windshield as she navigated the winding dirt road that sliced through the hills. Her knuckles were white, her heart racing with the rhythm of tires crunching gravel. Every so often, she glanced toward the forest line, lips pressed tight, searching. She didn't need a map. The landscape was etched into her memory, every rise, every gully, every hollow where the wind liked to whisper like a voice she'd spent years trying to forget. It had been 4 hours since she'd received the call. A foal had gone missing from the ridge, past the old Miller ranch. They said the mother had been found neighing beside a collapsed fence, blood on her haunches and panic in her eyes. It didn't take much to guess what happened next. The baby must have wandered, or run. Now the storm was almost here, and the chances of finding a newborn horse alive in the middle of a wilderness thick with coyotes and creeks running high were less than slim. But Clara didn't care. She couldn't. Not when something in her gut screamed that this mattered more than logic or statistics. More than fear. She pulled off the road and slammed the door behind her. Rain spat against her face as she plunged into the underbrush, boots sinking into the mud. Her flashlight cut a weak beam through the gathering darkness, sweeping over branches and leaves slick with water. "Come on," she muttered, her voice more plea than command. "Where are you, little one?" Her mind kept flashing back to another storm, another field, another young life slipping through her fingers. She shoved the memory down. This wasn't the same. This time she could make it right. Minutes passed, then hours, or what felt like hours. Her soaked jacket clung to her like a second skin. The cold bit through her bones. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. And then she heard it, soft, thin, like a whisper barely louder than the wind. A bleeding whimper. She froze, tilted her head, heart hammering. There it was again. She pushed toward the sound, hands scraping against bark and thorns. Her flashlight caught a flicker of movement, something pale and shaking beside a tangle of roots at the edge of a stream swollen with rainwater. The foal. It was curled in on itself, trembling violently, legs twisted beneath its fragile body. Its eyes rolled toward her, glazed with exhaustion and fear. Clara dropped to her knees in the mud, without a second thought. "Hey," she breathed, setting the flashlight down and reaching slowly. "It's okay. I've got you." The foal didn't fight. That scared her more than anything. With one arm wrapped around its chest, she tried to lift. It was heavier than it looked, bones and wet fur and barely enough strength to lift its head. She shifted, bracing her feet against the slope of the gully, pulling with everything she had. Her arms burned. Her knees slid. But inch by inch, they moved upward, away from the rushing water and into the safety of the bank. When they reached level ground, Clara collapsed beside the foal, chest heaving. She pressed her hand to its side, feeling the faint thud of its heart, rapid and weak, but there. Alive. She let her head fall back, eyes closed, letting the rain wash over them both. And that's when she heard them. Hoofbeats. Slow. Heavy. Surrounding her. Clara's eyes snapped open. Shapes emerged from the mist, dark, gleaming bodies, with wild manes and watchful eyes. The herd. Wild mustangs. At least a dozen of them, their coats slick with rain, steam rising from their flanks. They stood in a wide circle around her and the foal, silent except for the sound of their breath and the shifting of hooves in the mud. Her heart leapt into her throat. She didn't move, didn't speak, just kept her body between them and the foal, one hand still resting over its ribs. The lead mare stepped forward, a tall, dapple-gray creature with a jagged scar across her muzzle and eyes like molten earth, watchful, ancient. She came closer. Clara swallowed hard. "You don't want to hurt him," she said quietly, more to herself than the animal. "You're his family, aren't you?" The mare snorted, tilting her head. Then slowly, she lowered her nose to Clara's hand. Not in anger, in recognition. Clara blinked. For a moment, everything stopped. The wind, the rain, her fear. The mare exhaled, breath warm against her skin, and then turned to nuzzle the foal. It shivered beneath her touch, but didn't resist. Another horse stepped forward, then another, each one approaching the foal not with hostility, but something closer to reverence. And Clara understood. This wasn't just any foal. He belonged to them. Somehow, even in his weakness, they had found him. Or maybe they had found her. The mare nudged Clara once more, firmer this time, then turned and trotted a few steps into the trees before pausing to look back. Waiting. Clara looked down at the foal, then up at the herd. "Not yet," she whispered. "He's not strong enough." She expected resistance, but none came. The horses lingered for another breath, then melted back into the shadows one by one, like spirits fading into mist. Only the lead mare remained, eyes locked with Clara's. Something unspoken passed between them, an understanding forged not in words but in instinct. Then she too disappeared. The rain slowed. The wind fell silent. Clara sat alone with the foal in her lap, heart pounding, soaked to the bone, every nerve alive. She didn't know what had just happened, but she knew one thing for certain. This foal had a story, and it had only just begun. The morning sun broke through the haze like a promise, casting long beams across the dew-kissed pasture. Clara stood at the edge of the field, arms folded, watching the foal stumble awkwardly through the wet grass. His legs were still wobbly, but determination sparked in every movement. She hadn't given him a name yet, though she'd toyed with a few. None of them felt quite right. For now, she simply called him Little One. She hadn't seen the herd again, not since the night they vanished into the trees, without a sound. But their presence lingered in her mind like a scent on the wind, faint but unmistakable. They had chosen not to reclaim the foal that night, and that choice gnawed at Clara like a question without an answer. The foal paused, snorted, and glanced away. Clara crouched down and extended a hand, palm up. "Come on," she said gently. "Try again." He hesitated, then took a few steps toward her, each one steadier than the last. When he reached her, she ran her fingers down his damp neck. "That's it. You're getting stronger." She led him back to the makeshift stall she'd set up in her barn. It wasn't much, just an old structure left over from when her father ran the place. The wood creaked, and the roof had a persistent leak that she'd half-patched with a tarp, but it was shelter. Safety. Something she hadn't truly felt in years. Inside, she knelt by a pail and mixed the formula, glancing at the foal over her shoulder. He watched her with alert, intelligent eyes. "I'm not sure what your story is," she murmured, "but it's definitely not over." As the foal nursed from the bottle, Clara found herself drifting back to the past, to the weight she carried like a shadow stitched to her spine. There had been another colt. His name was Jasper. A botched surgery. Her hands trembling over the needle. The flatline that came too soon. She'd left veterinary school the next morning and never went back. Her hands were steadier now. She didn't want to believe in fate, but something about this foal made her wonder, as if she was being offered a chance, not just to save a life, but to redeem the part of herself she'd buried years ago. That afternoon, she was startled by a sharp knock at her front door. She opened it to find Eli standing there, hat in hand, silver hair glinting in the light. He was an old rancher from 2 properties down, barely spoke more than a sentence at a time, but his eyes missed nothing. "You're the one who found that foal?" he asked. Clara nodded. "How'd you know?" "Word gets around. Sheriff saw your truck near the ridge." Eli stepped past her and looked out toward the barn, chewing the inside of his cheek. "That herd," he said after a pause. "They're not normal. They remember things. Places. People." Clara's brow furrowed. "You've seen them before?" He gave a small nod. "Used to be your daddy's herd, before they went wild." She blinked. "That's not possible. These horses, they don't even come near people." They didn't. Until now. Clara felt something shift inside her, as though the earth had tilted beneath her feet. Why would they come back now? "Maybe they smelled him," Eli said quietly. "Maybe they smelled you." She didn't answer. The idea felt too heavy, too wrapped in myth. And yet, she couldn't deny the strange familiarity she felt in the mare's eyes, like looking into a memory that didn't belong to her. Eli pulled something from his coat pocket and held it out to her. A worn photograph, edges curled from time. A man stood beside a younger version of herself, both laughing, their arms around the neck of a towering black stallion. The stallion's eyes were unmistakable. Clara stared at the image, the past swallowing her whole. "He kept that picture?" "He kept every picture," Eli said softly. He believed in second chances, even when no one else did. She took the photo and held it against her chest. "So what do I do now?" Eli tipped his hat. "You do what your daddy would have done. You give that fool a reason to live." He turned and walked back toward his truck, leaving Clara alone with the photograph and a heart full of noise. Over the next week, Clara threw herself into caring for the foal. She read through old veterinary books she once thought she'd burned emotionally. She fixed the broken stall doors, cleaned out the barn, found purpose in the ache of her muscles and the rhythm of daily chores. And every night, she watched the tree line, hoping for a glimpse of the herd. They never came. But small signs appeared, hoof prints in the mud, tufts of hair caught on fence wire, apples left near the gate, gifts, warnings, or both. One evening, while brushing the foal beneath the fading light, Clara finally whispered, "River?" The foal lifted his head at the sound, ears twitching. "Your name's River," she said again, more certain this time. "Because you survived the current. Because you carried me with you." River whinnied softly, almost in agreement. Later that night, thunder rumbled across the sky, distant but growing. Clara stood at the porch, her eyes scanning the horizon. Something was building, something more than weather. The air tasted like expectation, like change. And still, the herd did not return. She didn't know what they wanted from her, or why they had spared River that night. But she knew one thing now, as sure as breath and bone. She wasn't just saving him. He was saving her, too. The wind had shifted. Clara felt it before she saw the signs. River no longer struggled to walk. He trotted now, head high, with a flicker of defiance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Each day, he gained confidence. Each day, Clara watched with quiet awe as strength replaced fragility. But with his growth came restlessness. He paced the fence line at night, ears pricked toward the hills, nostrils flaring like he was listening for something only he could hear. Clara noticed it first on a Tuesday. Muddy prints near the far pasture, larger than River's, spaced too wide for a wandering deer. She followed them as far as the trees before they disappeared into the underbrush. That night, River wouldn't settle. He circled the barn stall, snorting at shadows, tossing his head like something was calling to him. She left the stall door open just a crack, just in case he needed to feel less confined. It was a mistake. At dawn, the stall was empty. Her breath caught when she saw the gate swinging, wide open, the chain lying in the grass. Panic surged through her like a wildfire. She didn't stop to think. She ran. Through the pasture, across the ridge, into the woods. The trees closed in around her, dark and heavy, her boots sinking into the damp ground. "River!" she cried, voice cracking. "River!" Branches whipped her face. Her heart thundered louder than her footsteps. Then, through the trees, she saw movement, a flick of a tail, the gleam of a flank. The herd. They stood in a clearing, the same dappled gray mare from before at the center. River stood beside her, pressed close, like he belonged. Clara froze. The sight was beautiful and terrifying all at once. The mare turned to her, eyes unreadable. River looked back too, but he didn't move, didn't call out. He didn't run to her. She stepped forward slowly, arms raised. "River, come," she whispered. "Please." The stallion emerged from behind the trees then, massive and commanding. His black coat shimmered in the rising sun. Clara's breath caught. He looked just like the stallion in the photo, like the one from her childhood, her father's favorite. But this was impossible. That stallion had died, hadn't he? The black horse stared at her, then at River. The foal stepped forward, hesitating, torn. Clara crouched down. "It's okay," she murmured. "You can go." River whinnied, high and uncertain, before trotting toward her. He stopped a few feet away, confused. Clara reached out slowly. He stepped closer, then nuzzled into her shoulder. Behind them, the herd remained still, watching, waiting. She whispered against River's neck, "You're not ready. Not yet." That afternoon, Eli pulled up in his old truck. He didn't ask what happened, just handed her a sack of feed and leaned against the fence, watching River graze. "He found them, didn't he?" he asked quietly. Clara nodded. "They found him." Eli scratched his beard. "And they didn't take him?" "No, not yet." She glanced at River. "I think they're waiting. I think they're testing me." Eli was quiet for a moment, then said, "They remember your father. Horses don't forget kindness. Or loss." She looked at him. "Do you believe this is the same stallion?" He didn't answer directly. "Your dad used to say some horses are born with souls older than ours. Maybe that one's been waiting for someone to remember him." Later, Clara sat in the barn with River's head in her lap. She thought about the choices she had made, the guilt that had driven her away from medicine, from herself. She told herself it was about failure, but it wasn't. It was about fear, of not being enough, of making another fatal mistake. Yet here she was, caring for a foal that had been all but dead when she found him. And he had lived. He had trusted her. That night, thunder rolled again on the horizon. Another storm was building. She watched the clouds gather like ghosts over the hills. The kind of storm that didn't just pass, it changed things. At midnight, River stood at the fence line again, ears trained toward the trees. Clara joined him, placing a hand on his back. His muscles trembled, not in fear, but anticipation. The wind howled through the valley, bringing with it the distant sound of hooves. They were coming. She turned back toward the barn, but River stayed behind. He stood firm, like a sentry awaiting a sign. Clara swallowed hard. "You want to go with them, don't you?" River blinked at her, silent. The wind whipped her hair across her face. Her fingers curled around the fence post. She didn't want to lose him, but keeping him locked away now, after everything, felt wrong. She reached for the gate and opened it. River stepped forward, one hoof after the next, but turned back to look at her. Clara gave a single nod. "Go on. Just come back if you can." With that, River broke into a run, his legs no longer clumsy, his body lithe and free. The forest swallowed him like a secret. Clara stood alone, heart thudding in rhythm with the storm. In the morning, he was gone, but she found something at the gate, an old, faded leather strap, the kind used for leading horses. It wasn't hers. She picked it up and turned it over in her hands. Burned into the side were two initials, J.W., her father's. She stared out at the hills, eyes stinging, not just from the wind. River was out there now, and so was a piece of her past, perhaps even her future. She didn't know if she'd see him again, but she believed she would. The storm arrived with a roar. Sheets of rain lashed against Clara's windows, and the sky churned with a fury that seemed to reach down from the heavens. She stood by the porch, soaked to the skin, eyes locked on the distant ridge. She hadn't seen River in 3 days. Each hour since he vanished into the forest had stretched like wire across her chest, tight and unrelenting. But tonight felt different. There was a weight in the air. Not fear, expectation. A low rumble cracked through the valley. Not thunder, but hooves. Distant, then closer. The sound of power building. Clara stepped off the porch, mud swallowing her boots as she moved into the open. Lightning lit the sky. And for a heartbeat, she saw them. The herd. They moved like shadows at first, just silhouettes against the chaos. Then clearer, as the storm pulled back like a curtain. The black stallion led them, his mane wild, eyes bright with something ancient and defiant. River ran beside him now, strong, balanced, no longer the fragile foal she'd cradled in the dirt. But the herd wasn't running through. They were running to her. Clara didn't move. She stood rooted in place as the herd slowed, hooves splashing in the puddled earth, forming a wide circle around her. River broke from the group and trotted forward, chest heaving, coat gleaming with rain. He stopped inches from her, eyes locked to hers. She stepped closer, breath shallow. "You came back." River nuzzled her chest softly, a quiet, wordless confirmation. Behind him, the stallion followed, towering, silent. His presence carved silence into the storm itself. Clara's heart raced. He moved with intent, stopping only when he stood beside River. Then, something unexpected happened. He dipped his head, slow, deliberate, reverent, and pressed his nose gently against her open palm. Clara froze. The stallion raised his head again and looked at her. Not like an animal, like something more. Then he stepped back and let out a sharp, thunderous neigh. One by one, the rest of the herd responded, not with panic, but unity. They began to move, not away, but around her. A slow, solemn procession. The dappled mare bowed her head. Others followed. It felt ceremonial. Clara's breath caught. She realized what this was. Acceptance. Not just of River. Of her. River walked around her once, circling, then stood behind her as if taking his place. The black stallion turned toward the hills, gave one final glance, and trotted away. The herd followed without hesitation. Soon they were gone again, swallowed by the trees and the storm, their hoofprints already disappearing beneath the rain. Only River remained. She didn't speak. Didn't need to. She dropped to her knees in the mud and wrapped her arms around him. He leaned into her without fear, without hesitation. The last threads of her guilt, the fear that had paralyzed her for so long, unraveled in that moment. She had not only saved him, she had listened, trusted, and let go when it mattered most. And now, somehow, she had been given him back. Weeks passed. The rain gave way to warmth, and the valley bloomed. River followed Clara everywhere, through the fields, into the barn, even beside the house, when she sipped her morning coffee. But she never fenced him in again. He came and went as he pleased, and often she would find him standing at the edge of the property at dusk, looking toward the hills, waiting, remembering. The town began to take notice. Eli told her folks were talking about the woman who tamed a wild foal. Some didn't believe her. Others were scared of the herd. But Clara didn't care. She wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. Instead, she worked. She cleared out the barn entirely, repaired every hinge, every board, painted it white, like her father once had. Then she hung a wooden sign over the entrance, * River's Way, Equine Rescue and Rehabilitation. *. It started small. A retired police horse with a bad knee. A malnourished colt someone had abandoned. Clara didn't advertise. Word simply spread, as it always does in places where stories matter more than facts. She poured herself into the work. Every scar she helped heal. Every trust she rebuilt. Stitched her own wounds a little tighter. Eli helped when he could. So did a few of the younger ranchers. They didn't talk much, but they listened. And more than once, they saw River in the fields, racing against the sunset, like the wind itself had taken root in his legs. One morning, Clara found something new on the hill. A pile of twigs arranged in a circle. At its center, a smooth river stone. A gift. From the herd. From him. Clara stood beside River, who'd come silently to her side. She didn't speak. Just rested a hand on his back and watched the trees, the hills, the horizon. Somewhere out there, the herd moved unseen. Somewhere out there, her father's legacy lived on, not in barns or fences, but in wildness, in instinct, in freedom that chose to return. And in her. She reached into her jacket and pulled out the old leather strap with JW burned into it. She tied it gently around River's neck, not as a halter, but as a symbol. A promise. You came back to me, she whispered, and now I'll be here for whoever else needs the same. River lowered his head and nuzzled her hand, the wind lifting his mane like a banner. Clara smiled. Sometimes the most extraordinary things happen when you choose to risk everything, not because you're fearless, but because love leaves you no other choice. And sometimes, if your heart is open enough, what you let go of finds its way back. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing. I bring you true, heartfelt stories every day.